talking. I'm Antonio Alonso. I'm from Fund 17. As you likely know, I see some familiar names. We are a business incubator based in the 7th Ward. We have a shared workspace, a few accelerator programs. We prioritize supporting entrepreneurs of color and low income, those who are maybe the most vulnerable or not receiving the same level of services and investment. So I'm excited. So we are launching this webinar series with different local professionals, and I'm excited to be working on this one, co-hosted with SCORE New Orleans, who we'll talk in just a minute before we get started, and led by Bill Ganon from the Ganon Group, a local communications professional, and I just learned a Chamber of Commerce member. So I'll go ahead and hand it over to Jay to say a little bit about SCORE and how they support entrepreneurs, and then Bill can go ahead and get us started. And during this chat, I'm going to be watching, or during this call, I'm going to be watching the chat. So please feel free to ask questions, and I'll make sure to jump in and get those questions answered for y'all. So go ahead.
Thanks, Antonio. My name is Jay Reed. As Antonio mentioned, I am the chapter chair of SCORE New Orleans. For those who don't know, SCORE is a nonprofit developed by the Small Business Administration. We are nationwide, and our role in the community is to help support business development. And we do that by utilizing volunteers to help offer business guidance to entrepreneurs. We work closely with organizations like Fund 17 to help put on different programs for education. And we have a website that houses a lot of information and business resource tools just to help promote business development in the community. As I said before, we do a lot with volunteers, so each chapter is 100% volunteer-based, but we like to do our part to help with the business development of our community. And that's all I really wanted to say today. I don't want to take up too much time, so I'll hand it back over to Antonio.
Great, that sounds good. Well, Bill, you can go ahead and introduce yourself further and get started. Maybe I'll just add something that's part a question, but don't feel obligated to start the presentation with this. Just wondering about how maybe helping ties into how businesses are pivoting in order to address new needs that are coming up from COVID-19. Yeah, I'm just curious about that topic. And with that, I'll go ahead and hand it over to you, Bill.
Thank you, Antonio, and good morning, everyone. I hope we can spend the next 30 to so minutes together kind of going through what I like to think is one of the foundations of successful entrepreneurship. And selling is one of those phrases that folks hear about and say, well, I'm not really a salesperson. And of course, every entrepreneur who's on this call knows that that is incorrect. You are selling. Selling a lot. And during these really transitional times, I think helping is the new selling is a paradigm that can really help you get through this time and not be part of the fray. So I welcome your input throughout our presentation this morning. I believe Antonio and or Jay might be fielding some questions. So I'll invite them to jump in if there's a pressing question that needs to be answered at the moment. And of course, we'll leave a little bit of time at the end for some, and I'll give you some contact information as well. So with that, let's talk about the obvious. When we think about New Orleans and we think about doing business down here, you can't ever get too far away from how we like to party. We're a close-knit community. People like to hang out together. We are a big conference community. Conventions love to come here. And of course, we are a big music community and people love to come here. And all of that has changed dramatically over the last few months, certainly the last couple of months. That's a big obvious statement that everyone on the call already understands. The quintessential, all the way down to the quintessential handshake that has stood the test of time, has now turned into this bizarre ritual of elbows and feet. And as I like to say in a recent post, mask to mask is the new face to face. So what does that mean for our businesses? Does it mean more than a mask and an elbow bump for our businesses? You bet. Do we get to fold up shop and roll out of town? We sure don't. We have to find out how to thrive in this environment. And while I can't give you an answer for everything this morning, who could, I am going to focus on how you communicate in your selling paradigms. And to remind you of a couple of things. I've used this visual for a couple of years now since I love this movie, but it's how bizarre that it is so appropriate now. Despite all the PPE that's out there, we are still talking to human beings from other human beings. This is still a human industry. And no matter how many layers of protection we put on, from gloves to masks to more elaborate PPE, we are still humans communicating to other humans. However, our common enemy right now is FUD, and I don't mean the cartoon character Elmer. I mean FUD, fear, uncertainty, and doubt. And when you bring fear, uncertainty, and doubt into any equation, how people respond to messages without fear, uncertainty, and doubt, and how they respond to the exact same message with fear, uncertainty, and doubt is dramatic. And how we process is significantly different. And we have to understand we are living right now in a very FUD environment. A lot of the people that we work with are facing the same situations and are having to pivot. We're all trying to navigate through uncertain times. And yet, there are certainties in our business. There's bottom line certainties. There's the product and the service that you offer. That is a certainty. You know what it is. But it's at times like this, communicating the value of your services to your other B2B partners, B2C. We're going to talk more about B2B today, but I'll certainly touch on B2C if you need to. Changes a lot. And so what I'd like to do is take you through a paradigm that I think will help you communicate during this really uncertain time. And at the end of the day, go after the holy grail you're always going after, with or without COVID-19, and that is trust. The more that you can build trust between your entrepreneurial service, product, or venture with the customers that you are approaching, building trust is the foundation for everything else being that success will be built on. And trust doesn't happen overnight, and trust doesn't happen simply. But I hope to give you some pieces this morning in your communication processes, which is what I specialize in, the art of communication, to help. Let's talk about the business-to-business landscape for a moment. When you're talking B2B, you're in a solution-driven business, right? This is where you are providing solutions to other folks. You're talking about contractual timeframes, right? You're trying to do a deal that maybe have a test period and then expands out to a more elaborate beta test, to an early launch, to a launch. You have email lists, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram followers. And you also have LinkedIn, which is critical. You have visitors that come to your website. Heck, you might do business via your website. Your sales calls right now are more like via an email, phone, or online. The handshake, face-to-face, mask-to-mask doesn't exist, well, exists far less than it did before. And vendor conferences have now turned into these Zoom meetings, webinars, and others. So knowing this as the backdrop, right? What's the best way for us to spend our hours during COVID-19 and even after we start to gradually reopen? Because I think we can all agree that the reopen is not going to be a starting gun where, you know, hundreds of businesses start a 100-yard dash. It's going to feel very different. It's going to be much more of a graduated release. So how do you get the most value from your time in how you're communicating with your key customers? And you can fill in the blank, whoever those customers are. Other businesses, similar businesses, vendors, investors, any of those that you consider people you're trying to influence, right? What is the best way to approach them during this period of FUD, is the only way to call it, this fear, uncertainty, and doubt? Well, it helps if you'll stop for a moment and realize that every one of your potential customers that you call on can complete this sentence. And forgive the word rep here, just call it executive. The best executive that calls on me is blank. And wow, wouldn't it feel great if you knew that all the people that you're trying to influence would put your name as that? Fill in the blank at the end. How do you attain such a lofty position as the best person that calls on your customers is me? Well, let me back you up for a moment. I think we can agree that this is a very proven sentiment, that nobody wants to be sold, but everyone wants to be helped. That's fair, right? And just think about your own brain, how your own business responds to being approached by other vendors, solicitors, and so on, right? Oftentimes the first reaction is that imaginary hand, or literally hand, goes up and says, we're not ready right now. Well, I offer this and I offer that and I offer this, and we can make your business do that. Yep, I'm sure, we're just not ready. Because we tend to come, especially in uncertain times, forget uncertain times. One of the downfalls of effective sales communication, even in good times, is we tend to be very me focused. What I have, what I want to sell you, what I want you to buy from me. And we forget that this is a very solution-based world. We're looking for solutions. And I like to tell my teams, you know, no one ever hired a contractor because they had a great table saw, right? It's not the tools, it's not the stuff. It's how that contractor connects with you to explain the vision of what he wants to build or she wants to build. And taking your hopes and dreams and turning them into, or your goals and making them realized. Well, likewise here, consider successful people who connect can always keep in mind that the other, what can this do? What can this person do to help me? Okay. And that's, of course, all about benefits that they can offer someone. Here's how I'm going to make your life better. All right. These are the challenges that you have that I understand. And by the way, if you're interested in the book, Everyone Communicates, Few Connect. It's one of the many several that I keep at my at the ready for reference. So under this paradigm of being helped and not being sold, let's talk. And one of the paradigms of selling is, of course, you always want to be closing, right? You always want to be closing deals, closing deals, closing deals. This is how oftentimes we get trained. This is oftentimes the marching orders we're sent out with. And I'd like to say that we always should be helping, right? Always be helping your customers. So if you think about the emails that you send out, newsletters you may supply, phone calls that you make, seminars you may host and put on, even those rare personal meetings of late, but that were before COVID-19 and will be after, when we have more socially distancing protocols in place, and of course, ultimately a vaccine, personal meetings. If you rely just on this suite to move your product service, you'll probably create a customer, right? You'll probably create a client. But if you couple it with helping, if you couple all those things on the left with also the habits we're going to talk about of helping these clients, they turn into trusted clients. And the big difference between those two boxes on the right is one has a dotted line around it and one has a box, as you can see. And that's just my visual metaphor for the client on the top. When you only do the work on the left, can be a bit of a transient client. The next person who pitches them might be the one who takes it off your table. But when you put helping in the equation at the bottom and you turn them into a trusted client, the wall around that client gets a little heavier, a little thicker, a little higher for your competitors or others that are not suiting your best interest to get in the way of. And of course, we want the bottom. We want a trusted client. So my paradigm for helping is the new selling focuses around being a source of information, knowledge, optimism, insight, and support. Now, this doesn't sound a lot like out of a lot of product brochures, right? Not a lot of product brochures talk about optimism, insight, support. They do infer a certain amount of knowledge and they infer a certain amount of information. But I think in combination with optimism, insight, support, being smart is an unbeatable combination for being that most valuable asset. And that's what we want you to be. An MVA, the most valuable asset. That's the person that who gets to fill in that blank at the end of the sentence. That the best exec that calls on me is Vance Adams, Bill Ganon. Doesn't matter. Whoever is doing this work in a thoughtful, constructive way is the one who gets the wings as a most valuable asset. And here are the habits of these most valuable assets. They spend a lot of time understanding the competitive insight. They want to understand what's out there in the competitive marketplace and provide insight to their most trusted clients. They give industry insight. Where is the industry, the marketplace of what you serve? Where is it going? And how can you impart that and relay that over to your customers? They notice that their customers are on social media, but they also acknowledge that social media. They're active resharers of tweets, reposters of Facebook posts, Instagram. They actually, where possible, solicit feedback from customers of their trusted clients. What do you think this customer, whatever the name of it is, does well? Well, this customer does this well and does that well. This company really does these things well. To understand that and then to be able to communicate with that company, knowing that some of their customers feel this way about them can be invaluable. And then as simple things as website, understanding your key customer's website. Do you really spend time on it or do you bounce off it, hit a couple of pages and are out? We'll talk about all this. Now, for basically pop culture, if you lived in the early days of when dinosaurs roamed the earth, like I have in the 70s and 80s, this is Lieutenant Columbo, played by Peter Falk. And for those of you who don't know that reference, you might know that he was also the grandfather on Princess Bride. But that said, Columbo had a great character trait on his shows of asking relentless amounts of questions. He basically bore like a worm into the center of the apple. And by that I mean he really wanted to find out the next whatever layer of the onion. And it's a great paradigm for being helpful and finding information. One way to do this is to think about the customers that you have. And if you don't already, set up Google Alerts. And Google Alerts, by putting in the name of the company up at the top, I just put Chick-fil-A in here for another client of mine, will result in the bottom, which is seeing alert previews anytime this company's news is in the mail, or is in the, I'm sorry, this company's news is out there in the public sector. And when it is, Google Alerts will grab it from whatever source it is, whether it's a television station, whether it's a newspaper, whether it's a news service, AP News, whatever, and they will display it right on your phone and laptop. So, step number one to being insightful, grab that, get those Google Alerts going so you can be on the news in the most rapid manner possible. Now, is everything you're going to get on Google Alerts going to be highly valuable and provide incredible value to your customer? Of course not. But that isn't a discouraging point. That just means when you do find the nugget, and maybe it's 1 in 10, maybe it's 1 in 5, I can't guarantee that, but when you find it and you share it, what message does that send to your customer? Wow, they really know what's going on. They're really on top of the news. They really are a pretty reliable, a really good synonym for trusted, reliable source. Okay, so Google Alerts, get those cranked out now. Now, I don't think I have to say it's obvious, but Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, these are incredibly valuable treasure troves of information for your customers. Incredible amounts, right? LinkedIn is the profile that says, hi, I'm putting my hand up. I'm open to being displayed in a professional setting, so you have the right to reach out to people on LinkedIn. You need to be a little more careful when and Twitter can walk the line. Twitter can be news, company news can be on Twitter, and also individuals. I would try to stay closer to the company news, and that holds for Facebook and Instagram. The Ganon Group, my company, has a Ganon Group page on Facebook, but it also has a Bill Ganon page on Facebook. I have a Ganon Group Twitter page. I have a hardly used Bill Ganon Twitter page. And on Instagram, I have my own personal one, and I also have my Ganon Group one. So the bottom line is, and I have a Ganon Group and B Ganon on both on LinkedIn. The point is, I want the Ganon Group to be accessible at every one of those channels so I can impart information out. And your customers may be the very same way, and you need to go out and find them on these channels and be regular visitors to these channels. Regular visitors, daily, twice daily. Twitter can be hourly changing. But in it lies a ton of information that your clients are putting out there. Your customers are saying, they're tweeting things that aren't enough to be just viewed by you, but if they resonate with you, if they affect your business, if you agree, even respectfully disagree, Twitter is a great venue to offer that feedback. Let the customer know you're paying attention to them. Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, all the same thing. Do stay away from the personal channels, even if you find them, unless you are a personal friend. I think it does step over, it steps over a protocol line, in my estimation, when you assume too much personally and don't spend enough time on the business front. If they want to make you a friend, if you want to develop a friendship that allows you to have a channel on the Facebook, Twitter, Instagram side of things, great, good for you. But I would stick with it from a business one. And believe me, folks, there's information for days in there. And this is just a couple examples I used with a customer of mine who was looking at Quick Trip as an important client. And I explained this, I found this entry on Facebook And it was very interesting, and it showed a lot of great information, and it was a really good, positive story. And I thought, if you, the rep at my particular client, approached Quick Trip and even acknowledged this story to them, it would make for a really pleasant email. It could make for a really great exchange. And there it is, right there on Facebook, available for you to look at if you were taking the time to go look at it. Get on the websites of your clients, look up their blogs, look what they write about. Read what they write about. See where it cross-references your business. Where does this tie into your particular entrepreneurial service or company? Where the lines intersect are great talking points to go back to customers with. I was reading your blog from March 5th, just using the example here in the upper right-hand corner of my 4 squares there. Sykes ranks #1 for vision and go-to-market strategy on FS Research Front. Now, what this means to me, I don't know. But if I was in this business, and again, this was for another client, I would probably care. But the fact that I'll then write to the Sykes client that I have and explain that I was reading the story about them being ranked #1 for vision and go-to-market strategy, and had a couple of thoughts about how that affected my business and how we might be able to work together, that is so much a more engaging exchange than, gee, I really hope we can do business, Sykes. Here's my stuff again in case you forgot. And let me take a pause. That last little, here's my stuff again in case you forgot, that's the very me-centric world of moving things, of moving product. Me, my, look at what I've got, want to buy it, want to buy it, want to buy it. And when things get really rough, like they do in a disconnected time like COVID, yes, the pressure gets turned up, but we find that our habits go way more to the me side, right? Way more to the, we have to even work that much harder to contact our clients, and here it comes, get them to buy the stuff we're selling. And if you'll just embrace this fear, uncertainty, and doubt paradigm, you'll recognize it's the worst time for your clients to be approached with me, gimme, what can you buy from me? And it's a critical time to be, gotta be a rough time for you. Was reading some things that look good, that struck me as interesting, and here is what I wanted to share with you. So I'm sorry that we're a little disconnected in that I can't see you all personally. Oftentimes I give these presentations and it prompts a lot of impromptu discussion and input and feedback from the audience, but I hope you're starting to appreciate you are not at the center stage, your client and customer are. And you have to be the best one out there talking about them, their world, their challenges. Information, knowledge, optimism, insight, support. It takes time. It takes effort, right? And one of the first things I hear from people is, maybe you don't know how busy I am, right? Bill, doesn't sound like you know my business real well. I have to spend so much time doing, I don't care what the next 10 things are, okay? I don't care, because I kind of know what they are. They're things like this. You're either reshaping your business model, you're preparing proposals, you're reaching out, you're doing email, phone, you're doing virtual contact, webinars, you're trying to understand internal business plans, you're trying to think about internal sales meetings to get your teams going, you're working with your other internal teams in product development, web development. I get it, okay? These are what I call the green tasks on your calendar. And I use green because this is about money. Money. Reshaping the business model, getting proposals out the door, talking to clients, virtual contact, right? Closing a deal, making a deal, starting a deal, anywhere, green. I get it. I'm not telling you to not do this. Stay with it. Now what I want you all to do, though, is to vision in your mind your calendar. And for some of you that are watching this on your laptops and doing other work, pull up your calendar right now. Take a look at what the next 2 weeks look like, right? I will bet you they look a lot different than the weeks of January 15th and 22nd. There's a reason for that, obviously. It's this whole lockdown, shutdown, shelter at home, limited access. I get it. But even if you think the 15th, week of January 15th and the 22nd was way more typical, go back to your calendars and look at that right now. I'll give you a minute. Punch up your calendar, take a look at those weeks. When you think about the activities you were doing in there, right? And the green amount of, label everything green that fall under these. You will still see in the course of a week, there's plenty of white space on that calendar. There's still plenty of spaces between the green activities that you're doing, quote, other stuff. Now, this is where the devil's in the details, because this other stuff, this white space that's on your calendar, is the difference of where the great salespeople do, what great salespeople do, and what not so great salespeople do. And that is what I call orange time. Orange as in vitamin C, orange as in energy, orange as in sunshine, orange as in aren't you glad you did these. These are the kind of activities, looking up industry news, checking on your companies, that client's news, looking at their website in a deep, meaningful way, scanning their social media in a deep, meaningful way to find out what I can acknowledge, gaining competitive insight. You'll never want to give away information. It's proprietary. I completely understand it, nor am I encouraging that in any way. What I am saying is you may have customers that are like your customers, and they may have challenges that are like your customers. And there's nothing wrong with saying, we've seen challenges like yours in other places, and here are some ways you might have thought of that could successfully address yours, right? These are the orange activities, folks. This is where you become a most valuable asset. Is there a magic formula to how to do this? I wouldn't call it magic, but I'm going to give you a benchmark, okay? I already know how busy you are, and you've already taken a look at your calendars, and I bet you didn't look at Saturday and Sunday. And before anybody disconnects me for talking about Saturday and Sunday, let me just say that if you spend 1 to 2 hours a week, 1 to 2 is all, of looking up, and you don't have to do all of these in a 1 hour, 2 hour period. You can spend website feedback for 1 week. You can go do your social media on another week, okay? Or maybe always do some social check-in at the very end, but the majority of it is, I'm gonna go do some Google searches. Whatever you do, you must log these discoveries you make on your orange. When I'm at my seminars, I hand out these orange Post-it notes, and they're all there to trigger people's memories of what they found. And I ask them to jot it on a Post-it note, stick it down on their desk, on their computer screen, wherever their work area is, in a really, I don't care where they are. You stick them on the desk, table, workstation, and then you come back to them on Friday, you grab them all, and you observe what kind of information you're absorbing, and then you turn that into effective communication, okay? Really, I'm asking you for 1 to 2 hours a week of this. And just a final note on sales, right? As a musician, and you may have some musicians in the audience too, I think about sales as improvisation, not sight reading. It's not, I don't need you to repeat a robotic story about your product each and every time. What I need you to do is establish basic understandings, basic core tenets of your business. And I consider those the chords of the music, the bass chords, and then improvise on top of them. Core tenet 1 is reliable software. Great. improvise on top of reliable software. Core tenet number 2 is, 4 nines in terms of reliability. Great. Sales improvise on reliability. Okay? Whatever they are, know them and speak to them in a fluent, solid way, knowing you're under those basic tenets are critical. And you can find, by the way, all these blogs on my website, theganongroup.com. And a final metaphor for you is when you are selling your information, when you are selling your story, think about your sales points like bowling balls. You can only hand someone so many bowling balls, right? So 1 to 2 is probably right, maybe 3, but this I do know. The temptation to try to lay on, point after point after point after point, will simply become untenable, okay? It's just untenable. So get your story down so that you really have 1 to 2 critical things that you're trying to communicate to your customer for effectiveness. Back when we were prospecting, the old words were cold phone calls, cold emails, and direct mail. Now I want you to think about phone calls that help. Call them up with that helpful information you found. Emails that inform and serve. If you didn't see this, thought I would send it along. Social media, saw your post, believe in it, here's why. Thought leadership about your own organization. We believe this is what the next critical things to be looking at are. We wanted to share this with you. And I know we're kind of out of time. We're 40 minutes into it now. So I don't think I'm going to spend a lot of time with this other than to tell you that this is my communication rubric that I work with teams on to say that people live in a, look at the 2 arrows, when they make their communication style from left to right can be an assertive style of communication, less assertive, all the way over to the right side of very assertive. Or it could be communication that is at the top, very logical, or at the bottom, very emotional. And when you cross these, the 4 grids that turn out our personality, communication style types, thinking, directing, relating, and socializing. And there's a lot of factors that go into this. We don't have a lot of time for it here, but I'll give you a quick look. Thinkers are thoughtful, analytical, they like proof, but they are slow to decide, and that's the downside. They don't like disorganization. Directors like to get it done. They like to win, make things happen right now. The problem with their directorial communication style is they can be poor listeners, blunt, and abrupt. Relators communicate through love and harmony. They love cooperation. They like team players. They like things to be upbeat. The challenge with relators is that they don't like to communicate problems they're having. And if that means a problem with your company, they won't share it. Socializers communicate with uber talking, entertainment. They love humor, praise. They love recognition. Socializers have a big ego going, but they get bored easily and they don't like things repeated. I share this with you because you can think about not only your customers, but also the people in your organization that may fall into these rubrics. And naturally, you're also looking at this, and I hope, saying to yourself, I think I know where I fall in this. And by the way, you don't have to be one of one thing. You can be a blend of things at different times, but generally there's you lean toward one of these in your communication style. You lean toward one of these, okay? And what I'm asking you to do is take account of the people that you interact with on a daily basis and see, regularly that is, and see where they fall and communicate to them appropriately. And here's how those 4 ways of communication come together. Okay? So to kind of wrap up, let me tell you that I think that if you can just channel your inner Lieutenant Columbo and be relentless with your inquisition, to be deliberately inquisitive, curiously, constructively positive, I want you to use constructive curiosity, okay? Peel the layers of the onion back. If there's one thing that you've discovered, I wonder what's behind that thing, then you find the next thing. When you have that knowledge and then you share it with your customers, you become that MBA we're all after. Despite the COVID lockdown, despite all the barriers to what we're used to, masks, gloves, no handshakes, no hugs, no bro hugs, no high fives, despite that, the human element marches forward. How the brain processes communication marches forward. And I hope this session gave you a little bit of insight into if you can be a helper and not just a seller, you'll achieve what we all want. Connection, which leads to trust. And trust is the holy grail. Here's a rundown of a few other programs that I do with the Ganon Group. So when we do kind of emerge from this fog that we're in, if interested, of workshops about no is just the beginning of a conversation for overcoming objections, or diving deep into that rubric we just saw about speaking their language, I offer that in a more detailed workshop. Principles for effective in-person sales calls probably are a great lesson now because we will be going back to in-person sales calls at some time. And this is a great time to understand that. How to stand out in the blizzard. We know that emails fly like snowflakes and raindrops. How do you make yours stand out? When you do have to present to a group, either virtually or how do you do that in the most effective way? If your PowerPoints are soaked with bullet points and are boring to look at, we can help you detox them. And closing deals. When you're getting close to closing, but you really can't seem to close, I have a workshop on avoiding what I call deadly customer compliments and really turn you into how to close your sale. Lastly, this is how you find me, as I said before, and I'd be glad to take input from you as a team after this call. If you'd want to email me directly, feel free. Take your comments, questions. If you want to find me on social, you'll find the Ganon Group, and the tricky spelling is there's always only one N in the Ganon Group, in the middle, that is. And so I just call that to your attention. I would love to take your questions at this point or any feedback in the time we have left.
Sure. Thank you for that presentation, Bill. I don't see any questions currently, but before we close, maybe I'll use some time here with my own questions and then see if any come up. But something that's occurring to me is I think I'm definitely among the group of people that feel like there's not enough time to do things in the world, even in that orange time where maybe people aren't reaching out to me actively. I still feel like I have a lot on my plate, and maybe that could say something about my overall system, but I'm wondering if you could talk to that point, speak to that point.
Is the question specifically, Antonio, making the time for the orange activities?
Making the time, or I guess the experience that I'm thinking of right now is maybe I have a list of 5 people that I know I need to send emails to, and then I feel like maybe my productivity is going down and it's starting to get to a good time to follow up with some people or send a message to some people, but I still have just like a sense of like it's hard to prioritize this right now. It's not my what my actual business is, which I don't know. That's maybe more of a psychological question, but I was thinking it could have something to do with my overall system of tracking what I have going on, making it difficult to leverage that downtime.
So the best way to think about it is usually at the beginning of each day. You know, the old expression, you know, the way to eat an elephant is one bite at a time, right? And you have to take each day and kind of think about what the big accomplishment of today is going to be. If those 5 emails that have to go out are all equally ranked, and they're more important than something else that's happening today, that other stuff that tends to get in the way, and this is a bit more of a time management issue, they just have to surrender to the more important ones. There's only one of you. So unless you have help to send it out and you can delegate it, it has to be you. And I think most of the entrepreneurs that are on the call are probably of that same mindset. You know, they don't have a lot of delegation resources. So you really have to assess, take it by day. For me, Sunday night was the great evaluator of the week. I never wanted to go out on Sunday night. I always stayed in, always was very prepping for work, just so Monday wouldn't land like a, you know, breaking ocean wave on top of me. And then each morning of the week, I really tried to be most, what do I want? How does today end where I feel like I get a high five? Okay. How does today end where I can feel good about today? And I think I might start with that practice and see how that works for you.
Great. That's definitely helpful and reassuring. It gives me a strategy to put into practice.
And if I may, Antonio, don't forget, there's just a myriad of online resources for things that you just asked for too. You know, managing my day, the effective executive, there's just so much. And I'm not looking to overwhelm you with, watch a YouTube video. There's probably 30 on the very topic you just talked about.
Great, thank you. I'm not seeing any additional questions. I'd maybe like to make a suggestion to the audience. So Bill has just shared a lot of information on how we can help our customers or potential customers and enhance those relationships. Would anyone like to volunteer to say what business they have? And that could maybe give us a framework to talk about how you could apply this to your own business. I don't want to call anyone out, but I do recognize one name on the list, and I could go ahead and call that out. So, La Escuelita, I just saw Andrea just said hi to the panelists, is owned by Andrea Ruiz. It's a children's care facility that also incorporates Spanish speaking into the care. So how might, I guess Andrea is saying I'm an early childhood educator. So maybe Bill, how might this show up in Andrea's work for sprinkling and helping in her relationships with customers?
For early child care.
Yes.
Well, I would say to that, you will not get a more attentive, helping-centric audience than mothers and fathers of preschoolers, okay, of early child care. If you ever want to find a group that wants to be helped or given an edge or any kind of a leg up for their kids, that is the group to think about. So I would be an unabashed source of information for them, things that they can be doing at home, things that you're observing that in any way can make their experience as a parent. Let's be honest, parents stress all the time. That's what they do. Anything you can do to sandpaper those sharper edges off and give them a little bit of, give their brains something to do than worry, right? Here's some things I'm seeing with your kid or other kids that can work really well. Anything like that, to me, seems like the ultimate helping is the new selling. So in this case, your parents, I would think, are your customers because they're the ones that would sign up for your business.
Okay, great. Well, so the question from Andrea is the same business, and she's been moving from in-person childcare to distance learning opportunities over the past couple of months. And I think I'm understanding this question correctly. It says, when do I ask for payment?
I'm looking at it now so I can read along with you. So let's see, Andrea, the parents have your trust at this point. Okay, fantastic. When do I ask for payment services? Well, let me ask you this. When are they due? Are you speaking of COVID-19 concerns, meaning everything was rolling along fine until the middle of March and now no one has paid you since the middle of March? I'm not as clear about where we are in this particular challenge. I would assume in normal times you're a monthly payment service. I'm asking, maybe it's weekly, I don't know. But as far as asking for payment services, okay, let's see. Okay, so if you're brick and mortar and you've closed and you can't charge for the services anymore, if I'm reading you right, Andrea, it seems as though you're tied to having to reopen your brick and mortar in order to charge. So as much as you're not providing care during this time, correct? So I don't think you can charge until you're back in the business of caring and providing the services. And if that means you can't do it until you reopen, it sounds as though you are going to have to wait for that moment. Now, I guess I would encourage you in the meantime to find any and every opportunity in this new phase one to get yourselves open as soon as possible and have all the latest COVID-19 protocols in place in conjunction with the CDC and Louisiana Department of Health to make sure that parents can, feel confident. I hope that helped. I'm not sure I don't see how you can get the payment services until you're really performing the child care.
Yeah, I think that's maybe a tough one. But Andrea is suggesting doing a virtual membership option to do.
I would absolutely encourage that. Sure. If you think you can bring value via online, if you think you can bring value virtually, and they're getting value out of it, you should charge for value. That's what value is by definition. It's money for services rendered that people are assigning a dollar amount to. So sure. Now you may want to open it with a 1-week freebie and then migrate into a paid model just to get people started, but yeah. Any other questions or thoughts from the panelists? I'm happy to take them. You had my information. You can find me on the Ganon group. I'm happy to answer questions as you think of them. And you may think of something this afternoon. I'm happy to field stuff for you.
All right, Bill. Well, thank you. I think now is probably a good time for us to end the session. I'm not seeing any further questions, but this has been illuminating for me, and I hope it has been for everyone else on the call. And thank you so much, Bill. So Jay and Bill, while y'all are still on the call, do you have anything you'd like to leave the audience with?
My thanks. Thank you for your time. It's always a challenge to get through a difficult time, and we're in one. So thank you for your attention this morning. And if there's any comments, hopefully favorable ones, LinkedIn is probably my preferred venue for communication. I noticed that Vanessa had reached out this morning during our call. Thanks, Vanessa. It was nice. Always nice running into you too. So please use LinkedIn if you want to make a comment, share, or ask questions. Happy to. And someone's asking about copy of the slides. I think you recorded the webinar, correct?
Yes, that's right. We'll be putting it on YouTube and sharing it on our social media channel. So it will include the video.
Perfect.
And right. I just want to thank Bill for sharing some great information. And just to the attendees, please reach out to any of us, especially during this time. It's more important than ever that we find new ways to make these connections. That's why I'm glad that Bill did share this information on how to help your clients during this time. It's one thing to consider, especially with the child care services. As we shift to reopening the economy, things like child care services will be in high demand because you have a lot of parents that are home with their kids right now, and they have to make plans on how to go back to work and have their children taken care of. But I just say that to say, just keep those things in mind as we start shifting in our new normal, and just keep aware of where your business fits into the whole grand scheme of things, so you can present yourself in that light, so you can show the value that you have to your clients. But other than that, stay safe and stay in touch.
Great, thank you, Jay. I think I'll just end with a note that Friday is May 16th, which is the last official day of the shelter-in-place order. So there is guidance coming out about how some businesses can safely reopen. If you'd like to pull that up, we have put some links on local and state resources in our COVID-19 guide. If you go to fund17.org/COVID-19 and scroll down to general information, you'll see some safe reopening guidance from GNO Inc., the City of New Orleans, the State of Louisiana, as well as the Health Department. So with that, thanks everyone for coming, and I hope you have a great rest of your week.
Thank you.